Hello and welcome back to Book Talk with Kara. And today I get the pleasure of introducing you to my friend DiAnn Mills, who writes some of the best romantic suspense out there. And I have a feeling most of you have already read her books because she's been writing for a while and she's prolific. So she's just written a ton of books. But we're going to talk about her next book, which is Facing the Enemy. And DiAnn, I thought we could start by, first of all, just introduce yourself real quickly, and then we're going to jump right into this next book.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. Let's see. So you want me to introduce myself? I am DiAnn Mills. I live in Houston, Texas, the home of heat, humidity, Harleys, and an occasional hurricane. I have, let's see, the best grandkids in the world. They're perfect, which helps us put up with their parents. I've been writing since 96. My first book came out in 98, and it was because my husband dared me. And
I love it.
Oh, yeah, that might be something that your listeners might want to hear because it is kind of funny, but it was what I needed to just get myself serious about writing, and I haven't stopped.
I love it. And how many books do you have out now? Or maybe you're like me and you're like, I can't really keep track. It's hit a point where it's about X number.
I have just finished book number 93.
Yep. You're in elite status. That's awesome.
Either that or Kara is just quirky and eccentric and bizarre because that's what we writers are. And I always have another story, and I'm sure you're the same way.
Yeah, it is fun because I'll go somewhere, and if I can kind of shut down the brain and just enjoy it, I'll leave and I'll be like, "Ooh, this could happen, and this could be a story, and that could be a story." So tell us about Facing the Enemy, because every story has a germ of an idea. So where did this one come from? I mean, especially if you're at 91, 92, 93. I would imagine it starts getting a little harder to come up with that next idea. So what was it that sparked this one?
Actually, before I started to write it, I knew that I wanted a female FBI agent to be totally overwhelmed when her brother is killed. And as God works things out, a few months later, we lost one of our 4 sons in a pedestrian hit and run accident. And I journaled all those emotions, the anger, the bitterness, the grief. And then I realized, oh my goodness, this is the book I'm going to write. So the part that is most akin to life is, excuse me, is my heroine, her walking through grief of losing her brother. And then from there, it just spins off. I am a pantser. I am as surprised when somebody finds something as the reader. And it's the way I've always written. It's my adventure. And when I get to a place, well, I don't know how my hero or my heroine is going to get out of this mess. I have to take a few days off to figure it out. And that's just part of the whole adventure of writing. And Kara, I know you go through the same thing. Oh my goodness, how am I going to get out of this mess?
Yep.
How can they learn things? It is just an incredible opportunity for us to take a calling to write and almost have more fun than what our readers do reading it. So when someone's thrilled with something we write, wow, that's a double whammy, and I love it. I love it. You know what? If you have the time, I would love to tell you how I got started writing.
I would love that. That would be awesome, DiAnn.
Well, it's kind of funny. I had felt seriously that God wanted me to write for a long time. And I had written since I had a number 2, number 3 pencil on a Big Chief notebook pad that probably would be inappropriate today. But anyway, that's how I got started, but I never kept anything. And back in 96, my husband said to me, "Stop telling me that someday you're going to write a book. Just quit your job. I'll give you a year to get anything published. In fact, if you can get something published, but you don't get paid for it, that's okay too, because then you'll never have to go back to your other job." Well, you know what they say about dynamite coming in small packages. And so I just said, okay, I will. And I looked at it as a full-time job. And I am really disciplined, probably OCD disciplined, but we all have our quirks. And I looked at it that way, and I wrote that book, and it came out in 98. It was a Heart Song Presents, and I know that you had written for them too. Wonderful, wonderful company. Now, the funny thing is this, that book came out in 98. That was book number 1. And book number 92 will be out September the 5th, Facing the Enemy. Mm-hmm. And my husband, since 2017, now he works for me. So
I love it.
Yeah, turnabout.
That's awesome.
I say he works for me, but actually we're a team. He's very creative in creating banners and helping me with videos and things of that nature. He's really very good, but it is kind of funny.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that there was this, some authors feel like they get no support, that they're just writing and nobody close to them is actually there cheering them on, let alone saying, hey, I'm going to support you while you give this dream a shot. And I feel pretty fortunate that my husband has always been supportive. But to have your husband say, hey, I'm going to give you a year, go chase this dream and let's see what happens, that's a gift. And that's so wonderful.
Oh, it is. And I say to this day that he is my best cheerleader and my nightmare editor.
We need both. We definitely need both.
Yes, we do.
So that's wonderful. And I know I've seen him at many of the writers' conferences that we've been at because he helps get you there and he just makes things happen for you, which I love. That is real support.
Yeah, for sure. For sure it is. And he takes ownership in a good way of whatever I'm doing, so that if I miss something, he's got it. He is no good to brainstorm with because he has too much of an engineer mind. And so, that part has never worked, but he does read and edit just before I send it to my editor. And he's really good at catching things that honestly I never would. And then sometimes he makes suggestions I don't take, but
yeah,
those kinds of things.
It's a good partnership, it sounds like.
Yes, it is.
That's wonderful. Now, when you're talking about your books and that you're a pantser, I'm really curious because you tend to write, and not all of your books, but quite a few of them are these 3-book series. So how do you come up with the idea for the series? Is it truly like I'm going to have 3 agents and they're going to be connected in this way, and then you just see what happens? Or do you have a little more of an idea for what's going to connect the books when they're part of like a 3-book series?
First of all, if I'm doing something in a series, I want to make sure that each book is a standalone. Mm-hmm. And I would, Kara, I would hate it if you would say, oh, DiAnn, is this book number 3? Does that mean I have to buy book number 2 and book number 1? I don't want that pressure on anyone. So what I like is just what you just said. 3 people who know each other, 3 people who may be in the same aspect of law enforcement. The book that I'm putting the finishing touches on now is a negotiator series, an out there negotiator series, not in the bank. There's a holdup kind of, but something different. And with Facing the Enemy, with her being FBI, most all of my books are set in Houston, and that's where they get started. That really helps me in the setting because I can go there. I can talk to those people who would be involved in the culture aspect of what I'm writing. You know, I can say y'all, but that might be way off your vocabulary. And the different things that people say here in the South that people in the North have no clue, those all play into what I feel are my stories. And because of that, I want to thrill the reader with tension and conflict and all that suspense and whodunit and looking over your shoulders and the dripping faucet and the clicking clock, all those things that we do when we're writing a suspense with a thread of romance in it. And it really is fun.
So my very first ACFW conference was in 2005. And you probably don't remember this, but one of the first workshops, one of the very first writing workshops I ever went to was one of yours. And you had a whole bunch of magazines and things like that. And we were supposed to just kind of flip through and find articles and come up with story ideas. It was all about, how do you find plot points? How do you find, just kind of get inspiration from anywhere? And then we were kind of supposed to work together to come up with ideas. And I still remember that idea. And someday I'm probably still going to write it. But it was so much fun because I remember telling the people I was working with, I was like, this is my idea, don't take it, because it was so much fun to come up with. And you do so much teaching other writers, sharing what you've learned. And at that point, you would have been writing 8 or 9 years, but you were already a really well-established writing teacher as well. And why do you do that? Because, you still do that. You were teaching at conferences last year. You'll do it again this year. Why do you invest your time in doing that? Because that's time you can't be writing.
Number one, I felt that my calling to write was balanced. One was to write, of course. The second was to teach any serious writer whatever I learned. So whatever I learn, I want to make sure that I put that out there and somebody might be able to use it. That's really, really important to me. I enjoy mentoring. I love seeing someone I mentor, their book on the shelf or winning an award. It's like I'm just one proud mama. I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping other writers. It's just part of who I am, I guess. And so the writing and the mentoring and the teaching are just part of who I am, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel the same way. Then I don't know about you, but when I'm teaching, I feel like I learn it even better.
Oh,
so
my,
often,
yes.
If I feel like there's an area of the craft of writing that I'm like, okay, I'm seeing the same thing pop up in reviews, or I'm feeling this, I'm hitting the same barriers when I'm writing. I'm like, okay, it's time to teach a couple workshops on that, because then it forces me to really go deeper. Because if I'm going to teach it, I want to make sure I'm giving people something that's really going to help them and improve, like you helped me when I was a baby writer who didn't even have a completed manuscript yet, because it was the next year that I got my contract. And so, there are those people like you who helped me so that then I could get published. And then I think there's such a Paul, Timothy, Barnabas type of a model that's just, I love it because it's in Christian fiction. And I see it in other parts of writing as well. Just this idea of, I need people who are at my level, but I also want to be pouring into people and being poured into as well, because it's just, we need all layers of writers around us so that we can improve and we can be helping others. It's a hard business. And so we need that.
Absolutely. And if we don't pay it forward, what's the quality of the next level of books that will come out when we're gone, or when we say, no, you and I, this will never happen, that we're done writing. It's just not
Yes.
going to happen. It's like breathing. But there will come a time that all these new writers are going to be coming into play. And I, like you, I want to make sure that I have poured everything into them that I have. And of course, we learn a lot while it's happening. I've written a few books on the craft, which is like, oh, that helped so much.
Yeah.
Putting together the
absolutely.
next workshops to teach, or any of those fun kind of things.
So if you had a brand new writer come up to you, like I'm sure you get these all the time, I get them periodically. What's your top piece of advice? What should someone do if they want to chase that dream, and maybe they don't have Dean sitting there going, hey, I'll give you a year. But what's that number one piece of advice that when you give it to someone and they actually do it, that you've seen pays dividends for someone who believes they're called or has the dream to write?
I always provide 4 tips. Read, read, read.
Mm-hmm.
Write. Read every day, write every day. Learn something new every day about the publishing industry, whether it's marketing, craft, new trends, whatever, but do that every day. That's something that I'm OCD about, doing that to myself. And, read, write, pray, repeat, and that's just, you just can't give up on that. You've got to have your prayer focus. You've got to read so you know what readers are enjoying. You've got to write every day and learn that craft.
Yeah.
And
that just boils it down.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so. And it's just like, when someone grasps that, you've seen that, I've seen it, and it just, you can see the growth. They just explode with wonderful writing. They know how to brand themselves and market themselves, and to keep improving in the craft. And I love that. I love that. And I'm sure there are lots of other careers out there that you and I could feel passionate about, but then they wouldn't be us.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. And that's, that just really boils it back to the basics, because it always surprises me when people say they want to be a writer, and I'm like, great. So what's your favorite book? And they're like, I don't read. And I'm like, if you don't read, it's going to be hard to write, because there's just so much you just kind of intuitively pick up if you're reading, and especially if you're reading the right things, good books and broadly, and getting, picking up things from across different genres and things like that. The number of people are like, oh, I don't need to read, or I can't read when I'm writing. And I'm like, I might read a different genre than the one I'm writing at that time, but the idea of not reading is just anathema to me. I can't imagine it. So what's the book you're reading right now?
The book I am reading right now, Hank Philippi Ryan, and all I can do, hold on, I am looking on my Kindle because all I can see is the cover. And she is a phenomenal writer. So you just keep firing me questions while I'm pulling up my Kindle app here.
I know. When I pull up a book on my Kindle, I'm like, it's not very pretty, because mine's still the black and white one.
Mine is too.
Well, and it's fun that you mentioned her, because I have seen her books and I have not read them yet. So now you have just moved her to the top of my must-read pile, which is fantastic. Because I'm always looking for new people to read, especially when they come from writers that I definitely admire and love their writing. So
yes, this is called The House Guest.
Oh, I've seen that one, but I haven't read it yet. So you're enjoying that one?
Oh, yes. She hasn't written anything that I haven't totally admired. as a Christian and mindful of what I read, I
Yeah.
don't find anything. I'm just, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And
Oh, that's great.
I
Yeah.
really enjoy what she does.
Oh, that's awesome. Yay, thanks for the recommendation. And that's always the thing that when I'm trying a new author, that always makes me just a little nervous. And I'm like, I could skip over stuff. But then when I'm making recommendations, I know I just have to be very mindful of, what I'm recommending. So when you write, we've talked a tiny bit about this, but setting is everything. I mean, you can't take your story and just pick it up and plop it somewhere else. It is very much embedded in the location. So what are like 2 tips that you have for how you're able to do that so successfully?
To me, setting has to be viewed as a character. It has to be viewed as an antagonistic character,
Mm,
always working behind the scenes against the hero or heroine. And the reason I say this is because we want those characters to change and grow. So we have to have obstacles tossed against them all the time.
mhm,
And a subtle way to do that is in setting. And here are a few examples. Let's say that you are writing a contemporary and it's happening in a business office, and there are some people there that the hero and the hero or the heroine is having a very hard time uh, communicating with, getting along. Okay, that's an antagonistic scene. No matter what is going on while that character is in that office, that other antagonist is going to be there, always there. So the setting in itself is the office environment. Another way to look at it, let's say that the boss says that those 2 people have to work together and neither one of them can stand the other. So the
yes.
setting, everything that happens has got to be antagonistic just by the mere description of it. So that forces the character to change and grow, to elevate not only the spiritual and the mental, but whatever they are learning, whatever they have to do physically too. All of that is challenging it. Or let's say that a rookie law enforcement person is chasing Mr. Bad Guy into the desert. Mr. Bad Guy is home in the desert. Mr. Rookie grew up in the city. Right there, the setting is antagonistic. Not only does our Mr. Rookie or Mr. Rookie, whatever you want, have to try to find this person, but they have to learn how to survive in a setting that could potentially kill them. So I'm just always about, okay, what can happen? Oh, you're writing a sweet romance. And he
Mhm.
plans to propose in the middle of this beautiful park. They're out in this beautiful park and a tornado comes through. That's an antagonistic setting. I doubt if he gets to propose, but
Yeah.
uh,
Hopefully he still has the ring at the end of it.
yes, he still has that. But as you can see, I get very excited with that setting. I put the personality, what that setting really wants. And while it's an inanimate object, I guess that's the correct way to put it, I can give them personality and means to go about trying to disrupt everything that's in that hero's life.
I love it. And that's such great, rich advice. So those of you who are listening, you can see why DiAnn Mills' books are award-winning, and she's at 92. And I highly recommend Facing the Enemy because it has been one I have not been able to put down. Just there's so much going on. And as DiAnn says, it's her healing book, and that comes across because there's just so much rich emotion in it. So I highly recommend it to you. And it's a great book to pre-order if you haven't already, so that it shows up in your mailbox on September 5th when it releases. So thank you so much for joining me, DiAnn. It was great to get to talk with you today.
You're welcome. I loved it. I always love talking about reading and writing and being with other writers. So this was perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much.